We've got no microphone. Welcome back, guys, to the Premier League preview. On today's show, we're going to be going through a few big fixtures of the weekend, but we're also going to be talking about Arsenal and how they are better without Aubameyang, and a little bit on Martinelli's new contract, because there's some exciting news for Arsenal fans that he is set to sign a new deal after William Saliba signed a new deal. Arsenal going the right way. We're also going to be diving into Aston Villa versus Manchester United. We're going to be taking a look at Spurs versus Liverpool as well. But everything, the headline game for this weekend, Chelsea versus Arsenal, Graham Potter versus Mikel Arteta, two of the best tacticians in the Premier League. But anyway, guys, let's get started on our first game that we're going to be looking at today. That is Manchester United versus Aston Villa. This is going to be a big game for both clubs. Unai Emery's first game in charge of Villa. Villa are a bit of a weird side, obviously. Under Gerrard, they were very, very cold towards the end. Under Dean Smith, they were very, very cold towards the end. So Unai Emery's really going to have to inject some sort of, venom into the starting 11. The results since sacking Steven Gerrard have been pretty variable. The 4-0 win against Brentford, where they were 3 goals up in the first, 15 minutes of the game. And then the 4-0 drumming by Newcastle United. And this has been Villa's problem, consistency. And that's what they're hoping to get with Unai Emery, which is a bit of a weird one, because when you've looked at Emery's, previous managerial stints, you're thinking at Villarreal, they were always a better team in cup competitions, talking the Europa League. Emery's won it at Seville 3 times. He's won it at Villarreal as well against Manchester United. The consistency with Villarreal is quite hot and cold, similar to Villa. So it doesn't feel like they've completely solved their problems. But I do think it's a good appointment. He's a very good manager. And he's a manager that can hopefully put Villa to kind of position themselves into, the league they want to be in, European football, competing for top honours. Manchester United, on the other hand, of course, they're in a little bit of a transitional spell following Erik ten Hag's appointment at Old Trafford, and we saw the Diamond 3, or the 3-3-1-3 against Sociedad at the back end of the game. We've done a video on the channel about that, so go and definitely check that out. But I don't think United will start with that against Aston Villa. I think it will be Victor Lindelof, Martinez at the back. In midfield, obviously, Bruno Fernandes is not available for the game. So we could see, a few iterations of the squad. I think Garnacho deserves a start after his wonder performance midweek in the Europa League, grabbed himself a goal, played really well within the 90. But in terms of the players that probably come in, you might see Anthony Elanga on the right-hand side. Anthony apparently is out injured for this game. Same with Anthony Martial. Same with Jadon Sancho. United have got a bit of an injury crisis. And of course, Bruno Fernandes is suspended for the game. So it's whether Scott McTominay comes in and Eriksen moves to number 10, or maybe Fred comes into central midfield. I think that's probably the most likely solution to it is Fred comes in and plays with Casemiro. I quite like Fred and Casemiro together. I think they've got a good relationship on the pitch. But in terms of the player that comes in to replace Bruno, I think there is there's 2 options. We've got Donny van de Beek. He played against Sociedad midweek in the Europa League. It was quite good, moved off the ball well, but I felt United lacked someone to link through to the sort of final third with Donny playing that position. He spent a lot of time in the striking position versus as a number 10. So I'd love to see Christian Eriksen there. I think it's Christian Eriksen's best position for Manchester United is kind of having, Eriksen number 10 and allow him to roam it, allow him to play make, allow him to, provide the assists. We saw him pick up that really good position against West Ham for Marcus Rashford on the back post. And that's what I'd like to see, Eriksen moving out of that number 10 area and moving towards the right-hand side of the pitch, maybe to allow Anthony Elanga to drift inside or to get into that striker position. I quite like the idea of Manchester United doing that and Christian Eriksen being that hub and that focal point. I think for Manchester United has been a number of top performances this season from defenders. We're looking at Lisandro Martinez as up there with one of the best centre-backs in the league, which I think he definitely deserves that title. I think he's been absolutely sensational playing out from the back, and the consistency in his performance has been really refreshing, because I think with Manchester United centre-backs previously, we'd see Maguire go on a run of a few games, we'd see Lindelof go on a run of a few games, and then there'd be a mistake in there. I think the big thing we've seen with Martinez, since he adapted to the Premier League, I think that's one of the things that we've got to give him a little bit of variant at the start of his tenure at Manchester United, but I think recently, last 6 games, really good performances on SofaScore. He's getting 7 in each of those games. And I'd say man of the match last weekend was absolutely dominant against West Ham United. The blocks, the tackles, the ball progression, the ball retention, 92% pass accuracy against West Ham last week, 100% of his tackles won. He's going to be vitally important for this game against Aston Villa. Looking at the threats for Aston Villa, I think there's a number of threats in the side. Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins. But I think we've got to focus on Leon Bailey. He looked very, very good against Brentford. Playing more of a traditional left-wing position. He is left-footed. He is going to go on the outside, but he's also going to finish across the goalkeeper with his left foot. A little bit like Leroy Sané at Manchester City, kind of that left-sided inside forward. When you look at the statistics, Leon Bailey actually is more productive when he plays on the left wing than the right wing. So it does kind of question why this hasn't been changed previously. Every single time we saw when Gerrard played him, it was kind of being on the right wing. And I think moving to that position of him being left wing, being more natural, giving Villa more natural width. I think that was a big concern with Villa fans when you spoke to them about the issues with Gerrard, as everything was kind of throwing it through the middle and kind of not really any width in the attacking side of the game. So obviously he'll be a threat, but he's up against Diogo Dalot, arguably United's other top performer this season. He's been absolutely fantastic. Leeds United in interceptions, tackles, touches. He's so important in the possession play. But I think Danny Ings is going to be an interesting one. Martinez and maybe Maguire off. With Danny Ings to deal with, to cope with his movement in behind, his runs. He's a clinical finisher at the end of the day. You give him the chances to put the ball in the back of net. Against Brentford, 2 shots on target, 2 goals. He's got that ability to link the play as well. 3 chances created. He is going to be a threat to Manchester United. But I do think it's about that midfield that we mentioned previously. Eriksen, Fred, Casemiro, Anthony Elanga, Rashford. Is what we got on SofaScore, but I would definitely be going with Garnacho from the left-hand side. I don't think we can ignore, his impact in the game against Real Sociedad. Not only that kind of threat on the dribble, cutting in, but his movement off the ball was really good. And if we could see Eriksen, receiving in a high position, or even Rashford, and then looking for that ball in behind that Cristiano Ronaldo played for him in the game against Sociedad, I think that could be a real good position for Manchester United to attack Aston Villa when they sort of inevitably throw their fullbacks slightly forward. Take a look at Garnacho and his heat map against Real Sociedad. Left-hand side in that number 10 area at times, drifting in, scored a goal, 30 touches, completed 100% of his dribbles, 2 shots, 2 interceptions. Really fresh. And I think one of the big things that Bruno said in his post-match interview after the game was talking about how he changed his attitude, and he changed his attitude for the better. And I think that's a big, big thing for players. There's so many talented players that come through Old Trafford or have come through to Arsenal, a City, Chelsea. But the attitude is the biggest thing. And Garnacho appears to have sorted his attitude out and now is a committed player in training in the squad and turns up on time, which is really important things for Erik ten Hag. I probably think he's going to be up there with some of the best players in the world if he continues this trajectory. But should be a good game. Aston Villa under Unai Emery versus Manchester United. Threat at number 10 at Emi Buendia as well. We know Emery likes his playmaking number 10, so that's definitely something United need to deal with. But with Casemiro in that central area at the moment, he's been so dominant. So dominant in that central area in the Europa League, but also in the Premier League. I thought it was absolutely fantastic against West Ham United, anchoring the midfield, winning tackles, making clearances, defending, superb performance. But anyway, guys, they're my thoughts. Get your score predictions into the comments, and we'll dive into the comments now. Any questions that you guys have got right now? Footy Gangster in the chat. What do you think about Bruno's comments about Garnacho? Kind of what we previously spoke about there. I think it was needed. I think there was a reality shock in there at some point. We think about pre-season and Garnacho got no minutes. And there was a player that wasn't punctual to a team meeting. You put 2 and 2 together, kind of work out which player it was. So for him to get the respect of Erik ten Hag in training, I think is really important. And we'll just see Garnacho get better and better for Manchester United. So definitely something to look out for. Footy Gangster also in the chat. Eriksen looked a little tired against Sociedad. Yeah, that could be a bit of a problem because he's going to have to be the creative hub in number 10 for Manchester United in there. And we've also got Arteta being a phenom. as well in the chat as well. Arteta is, a really good manager. Big fan of Mikel Arteta. Think he's got a lot of good qualities about him. But yeah, should we move on to our next game we're going to discuss today, which is the Aston Villa game. Keep getting into the comments, guys, and I'll keep jumping in and out of the comments. But next up, we've got the big one on Sunday, Tottenham versus Liverpool. Liverpool, that are in the weirdest spot we've ever seen them as a team under Klopp. Defensively very, very open, too much space, especially on that right-hand side of the pitch. And I keep thinking Liverpool have made that next step, the step for them to, take the next moment in their season to kind of grow and start to get up the league, because realistically sitting ninth at the moment, and that is a very, very poor start to the season for Jurgen Klopp's side. You think in terms of drop points, I think they only dropped an extra 3 points, and they've already dropped this season last season. So that is a big concern for them. They need to sort themselves out. And Tottenham obviously fighting for the top four under Conte. They've had a little bit of a wobble at the moment, and they look very Conte-like at the moment, if that makes sense. You're looking at the last 5 games, they've conceded 8 goals in 5 games, which is kind of the basis of what Conte's sides are good at, which is defensively dealing with threats. And I suppose the game against Bournemouth was a bit of an eye-opener for them. A bit of a shock and awe with them. Kiefer Moore grabbing 2 goals in that game, two good finishes, one with his head, one on the deck. But at the same time, Spurs were so poor, uncreative, unimaginable. They just looked really boring. And they really had to fight back into this game, set pieces and, chances on the counter-attack opened that up for them, and they came back in that match. But also the same thing happened against Marseille, another very, very poor performance from Spurs. And they had to get bailed out by Longley and Højbjerg with that kind of rocket at the end. And I worry for Spurs right now. Or should I say, I did worry for Spurs right now, because one of their probably better players under Conte has been out injured, Dejan Kulusevski. We've not seen him in a Spurs shirt since the game in September against Leicester City, where he was absolutely fantastic. And I think the big thing that we're not getting when Spurs don't have Dejan is that creativity in the final third. That wing play, the inverted wing play, drawing pressure in, taking people on, making things happen. Because I feel like Spurs at times are a little slow to get to the final third. And by they're there, the opposition have set up their block and they're absolutely fine. Whereas it feels like when Kulusevski's there, he's an outlet on the wing, and it takes less pressure. It takes more pressure off the right wing back, because that's a position that Spurs don't really have an attacking outlet there. We've seen Conte try Ryan Sessegnon in that position in recent weeks because there's such a lack of creativity in that zone for them. So I think Kulusevski's back in training. He kitted up for the game at the last weekend, so he should be back. But if you look at the sort of average positions of where he is, he's the widest player on the right. And I feel that's what we've missed from Spurs, is that outlet on the right-hand side to really dribble and to take you on from the wide areas. His heat map is very dark, just outside the opposition's box on the right wing. He'll receive, he'll cut in onto that left foot, he'll play creative passes, and I think he is absolutely massive for this game. I think without him, they would struggle. And whether that's just a bit off the bench for Antonio Conte, start with a kind of 3-5-2, sit, try and suck up some pressure, defend a lot better against Liverpool, and then bring Kulusevski on to kind of cause a bit of carnage on the counter-attack. Liverpool, on the other hand, they are, it seems like they're slowly getting there. I thought they were much better midweek again against Napoli. It's a bit of a weird one where we see, I pretty much said this last week, I thought they were better against Ajax, and then the weekend they lost to Leeds. Previously I'd said they were better against West Ham, then they lost to Nottingham Forest. They are a very inconsistent side this season, but I think one of the big things for me in this match was Ibrahima Konate coming back into the side. For me, he's the perfect model of a modern-day centre-back. Quick, strong, wins his duels in the air, wins his duels on the deck, very good passer, carries the ball out the back. But he also covers Trent supremely well. And that has been where teams are targeting Liverpool. It's the simplest thing in the world against Liverpool. Attack down your left-hand side, attack down their right-hand side. And it happens time and time again. And that's something that Liverpool need to fix. But I feel with Konate on the side, they just look defensively a lot better. The other thing that we've got to mention as well is the slight change in structure. We can see here that Liverpool have been a little bit more defensive on the right-hand side. Trent, number 66, arguably, is making a back three. versus his usual high and wide or high and inside position. And arguably the left wing is tucking in and Tsimikas is providing the width, and Salah's a little bit wider than we kind of expect. We are still getting a tune out of Mohamed Salah. It's just not at that kind of the same high level that we've seen before in there. So it's definitely an evolution for Liverpool. It's going to take some time, but I feel with Konate in there, with Trent in a deeper position, it should start to get better. I actually quite like that they went back to the 4-3-3 midweek. They looked a better side without Darwin Núñez, and it does question that signing. Of course, he did grab a late goal in the game, but going from Mane, who's an inside forward on the left, to Darwin Núñez, a striker that likes to drift left, it is a weird signing. For all the money, it's a weird signing. My concerns with Darwin Núñez before signing for Liverpool, when he was linked with Man United, was the fact that he's not very good to feet. He's not very good receiving to feet, and playing through lines and being that target with the ball. So that was always my concern. Not the best ball player, but I could appreciate his talents, in behind, and I could appreciate what he can do when finishing. But at the same time, there was always that concern in there that if Liverpool were still playing those deep blocks, his impact in the side is quite low. And I feel it was looking back now, it's you'd say false nines support Liverpool a lot more. And I think the big thing with this match is, when you're playing a back three, you can completely overload a team that plays three at the back if you play a false nine. You play a false nine with kind of narrowish forwards. So Darwin Núñez could actually work quite nicely in this match if Liverpool can dominate, have Firmino linking, drawing Longley off out of the middle of that back three, and trying to get the ball, in behind the spaces, in behind Ben Davies and Dyer, to try and expose them in those central channels. Again, that's classic Liverpool from what we see there, but I think the impact of Konate in the side is going to be big. Henderson should be back as well. Is he playing at the same level as he used to? Probably not, but at the same time, he is that leader within the Liverpool team. So it's going to be a fascinating clash. I think this is a game that's going to be about substitutes. Obviously, with Tottenham losing Heung-min Son to a broken eye socket that sounded pretty nasty, they're going to have to go with Lucas Moura and Kane from the start. But I think Kulusevski off the bench is so important for the game. At the moment, SofaScore have got him out, but I think he might be on the bench, which I think will be big for them to build. It's all going to be about Harry Kane versus Van Dijk, the quick transition. And I think that's the big thing with the previous battles between the two sides. They've been very, very close, but it's almost swayed one way, then swayed the other. The game last season at Spurs' ground kind of was that 3-5-2 shape versus Liverpool. I think you look at that midfield and Ndombele, Harry Winks and Dele Alli, and you think, how the hell did he get a 2-2 draw against Liverpool in this game? Got to give Conte a lot of credit for there. They've got a lot more energy in that central midfield area. They'll be able to protect themselves a bit more. And one of the big things that when you play Liverpool, when they push the fullbacks high, it's attacking the channels. Liverpool can counter that with playing Trent a little bit deeper, but they'll still have a little bit of a problem on the break with Lucas Moura. And, of course, Kane. Kane in this fixture scored. Of course, Son grabbed the goal as well. And I think that could be a good outlet for them. They were super high in this match. And I think that will happen the same with Lucas Moura and with Harry Kane maybe being the linchpin and the guy linking the play. But they are my thoughts for this match. I'm excited for this game. I think it's going to be an absolute corker. Get your score predictions into the chat right now and we'll roll through your score predictions. We're streaming on YouTube on Fridays and on Mondays. That is the review on Mondays at 12 and the preview at 3 o'clock on Fridays, Ewan. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and get involved with that. Fabinho must fix his form with the World Cup coming from Footy Gangster. Robin, why do you think Arsenal are better than Chelsea? We'll go into this very, very soon. Footy Gangster as well. 3-0 Manchester United, 2-0 Liverpool in the chat as well. Get your score predictions in there and in the comments below. If you are watching this video on repeat, you know what I'm saying. PK is going to go for a 2-2 draw as well. I think there'll be goals in this match. I think you're looking at another 2-2. I think Liverpool to grab a first goal, Spurs to come back, Spurs to then take the advantage, and I think Liverpool late goal to equalise in this game. I'm going to be benching Trent Alexander-Arnold in fantasy football. So, you guys should do what you ever you want to do in fantasy football as well. Let me know if there's any more thoughts in the chat about this game, about the first game that we looked into. And now we're going to drop into a little bit of Arsenal chat, a little bit of Chelsea chat. and how both teams have changed, and how both teams have evolved, and what we kind of expect with Arsenal going forward. Of course, partyless, but they've got a pretty good number 9 in Gabriel Jesus. We'll talk about him as well and his, attitude, which I think is really, really good, which I kind of like. But let's dive into that game. Arsenal versus Chelsea. Or Chelsea versus Arsenal, shall we say. Potter expected to play a 3-4-3. And, of course, Mikel Arteta will continue with his 4-3-3 shape. We've got some analysis to look at as well, looking into some moments from the 4-2 Arsenal win from last season. But I think first and foremost, we've got to talk about Aubameyang and Arsenal, how they look better without Aubameyang. Again, Arsenal's setup with Aubameyang was very similar. Yeah, kind of a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 hybrid type shape with Aubameyang as the striker. But I think the interesting side with Aubameyang is, he's more similar to Eddie Nketiah, where Aubameyang's going to do his best work, running the channels, and then moving in the penalty area when his team has got the ball wide. That's all, that is absolutely fine for a number 9 to do that. Number 9 to operate in that way. But for Mikel Arteta's Arsenal and Pep Guardiola's City and arguably Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, they look so much better with a false 9. They look so much better with a 9 that can come off the line and get involved in the play, that could arguably play as the kind of middle element of a diamond in midfield. And no disrespect to Aubameyang, because I think Aubameyang is a wonderful footballer, but he is very much an in-behind guy. He's an advanced forward. He's a guy that's going to get in behind the opposition's defence and turn. And I also think there's a bit of selfishness about Aubameyang versus Gabriel Jesus. I think when you look at Gabriel Jesus and you see his attitude on the pitch, the guy just wants to win. He's not as geared up as Aubameyang in a sense of scoring goals, and the attitude with Aubameyang and scoring goals kind of rubbed off on the pitch a little bit at times. And if he wasn't having the best time in front of goal, the pressing intensity would drop off, his movement would drop off, he'd get less involved in the play. And I think Gabriel Jesus coming in is just so suited for Arsenal. In a recent press conference, Mikel Arteta spoke about Gabriel Jesus and him just needing a little bit of luck to score a goal. Arteta said that's going to change. He's getting into the situations, he's getting the chances, he's contributing to the team an awful lot. He's helping to win matches. The way he competes for every ball, to every single action is incredible. The goals will come. He needs to be patient. He's been through it in the past and needs to learn those lessons and don't stop doing other things he's doing so well, as that he can maintain that level for the team and for himself. And I think that sums up the change in Arsenal right now. The lack of egos in the Arsenal squad. El Neni spoke about how if Arteta could get rid of the captain, he pretty much could get rid of any Arsenal player within the squad, which puts a bit of fear into these players that they need to compete, they need to fight for every single blade of grass, every single ball, which is so important when you're playing a pressing scheme or a pressing setup. But not only that, we mentioned previously with the pressing structure for Arsenal when they drop back to their kind of 4-2-3-1 and engage Martinelli, Saka and Jesus have to be super aggressive with their defending and with their squeezing of the opposition's back line. And obviously a lot of credit for Gabriel Jesus has got to be in that moment, those moments of the game when they're pressing high, when they're winning the ball back, when they're turning the ball over high, but also that obviously the build up, the chance creation, which is very, very important to a modern side. Having that ability to link, to drift, and at times we see Jesus kind of deeper, and Granit Xhaka has been making his way into the box. Odegaard has been making his way into the box. And I think one of the big impressive things that I feel with Arsenal this season is the amount of contributions that they've had statistically. When we take a look at the goals plus assists for Arsenal this season across the Europa League, but across the Premier League as well, every single outfielder in their first 11 has been directly involved in a goal. So we're talking both centre-backs, both full-backs, the DM, centre midfield left, centre midfield right, left wing, right wing, and striker, which I think has got to be a big credit to Arteta's system and team. And arguably they're a little bit closer to Pep Guardiola's Centurions in a sense of that team. There was contributions from each player across the forward line, both the wingers, both the inside players, obviously De Bruyne and David Silva for that Arsenal team, and the number 9. And I think that's got to be, you've got to give big credit to what Arteta's built at Arsenal and how they've evolved their system, their shape to get everyone involved in the football. Gabriel Jesus directly involved in 10 goals so far in the Premier League, Saka 9, Martinelli 7. And Martinelli's the guy I've got to talk a little bit about as well. The reports coming out this week is that Martinelli wants to stay, wants to extend his contract at Arsenal, and recently speaking about his future, he says, I want to stay, just give me the pen to sign the contract, which is great news for Arsenal fans because I think he's been one of the most improved Premier League players of this season in terms of his consistency, his hunger, his chance creation, the goals, the assists. I think he's really stepped on with how he's contributing to the Arsenal attack, directly adding around 4.3 shots to Arsenal attack per game. 1.8 chances created so far. A lot of touches as well. 51 touches is a lot more than he managed last season. And I think when you look at games such as the Forest game, he really opened up the start of that. The start of the 5-0 victory with his movement, with his driving inside, carrying into the central area. His goal was absolutely superb. I can't say enough about Gabriel Martinelli. I am a big fan of the young Brazilian that really is kind of making waves in the Premier League. But we've got to talk about Chelsea because I think that's the other side of this game. It's a very two-sided match, this one. Graham Potter's side are obviously coming off the back of an absolute drumming at the hands of Brighton, which was a big surprise in the Premier League. Again, sometimes players get super motivated when playing against former clubs and when playing against former managers. And I think that was what happened. But the big thing that I think is a concern for this game, which tactically we're going to look at in a sec, is how poor the outside centre-backs played for Chelsea. Cucurella and Chalobah were really opened up on the counter-attack, and that is a concern. I think the other side, the other link as well to Arsenal, Trossard very much played as a false 9, and Chelsea couldn't get a hold of him. And I think that's a few things that they need to really work out and focus on how to deal with these problems in this match, or Arsenal could really run away with it. And I think the big thing with Arsenal, it's you've got to deal with their forward line. You've got to deal with those 5 forwards. How do you do that? Do you drop back to a back 5? Do you continue with the back 5 shape, or do you try a diamond in midfield? I think there's a lot of options for Graham Potter's side in the match. But again, injuries have been a concern this week. We found out this week that Ben Chilwell will be out until after the World Cup. He'll miss the World Cup, which is really sad considering, he's only basically just come back from a big injury as well. So that's a big concern. So that might mean that they've got, less options to play kind of out of the back and less options for them to, be super attacking in the final third. I think one player that will probably come back into this game and probably will maybe start from the right-hand side will be Azpilicueta, and I think he's got a very important role in this match as well, dependent on what shape Chelsea go for. So if we look from a tactical perspective, did Chelsea start with a diamond? I think that could be a really good option. They moved to a diamond against Manchester United when Man United really opened them up in the first half. Potter made an early tactical change, brought Kovacic on. They went to a diamond. They looked really good. I genuinely think this fits the squad right now, considering the injuries. The other suggestion would be going for Trevor Chalobah as an outside centre-back, going 5 at the back with Cucurella, Azpilicueta, Kovacic and Jorginho in a defensive positions, and then Mount sitting off Aubameyang and Havertz. Again, Aubameyang, the big moment where he could attack would be on the left-hand side of Arsenal's defensive shape. You think Zinchenko moves into a central midfield position to join Partey at the base, which could leave opportunities on the break for Mason Mount to thread Aubameyang in behind the defence. I think that's a really important part of it. And I think this formation, or a 4-4-2 diamond, gives Chelsea that base of an attacking mid and 2 strikers to spin in behind the opposition. I think that's maybe where you can get at Arsenal in there. Arsenal, when they build, obviously they throw Granit Xhaka into attacking midfield. Odegaard sits in between the lines. Zinchenko or Tomiyasu will move and join Thomas Partey. And I think naturally this shape gives Arsenal kind of an outlet, gives Chelsea an outlet, but also gives them enough bodies to kind of defend and try and deal with the overloads. I think one thing that'd be a slight concern, you're probably going to have to go Kovacic on the right-hand side of the pitch because, a big thing with Arsenal this season has been Ben White's progression into Saka then driving at you, and then Ben White providing him an overlap into the final third. So either Koulibaly's going to have to take up that movement, or Kovacic is going to have to shuttle out there, which could be a threat. I think if Chelsea do go with a back three, or even if they go with a back four, let's say, one of the big concepts is for them on the ball is not allowing Saka or Martinelli to have a 1v1 with their outside centre-backs. I think that could be brutal if, in the transition, especially with Arsenal, if there's an ability to hit Saka or Martinelli early and allow them to have that 1v1 situation on Koulibaly, on Chalobah. I think that's a real hole in the Chelsea backline right now. Even if they go with the back four, the same thing could happen with the outside players. They need to press the ball. And there's a reason why that is the case. When we look at Arsenal and how they opened up Chelsea on the break in the previous game, one of the big things that was apparent on the counter-attack was these types of situations. So this is from the 4-2 Arsenal win on the 26th minute after Granit Xhaka's just carried out from the back. He's won the ball back. He's nutmegged Kovacic or Jorginho in midfield. He drove through, played the ball out wide to Saka. In this moment, Saka's got a 1v1 with Sarr. Obviously, Sarr's not at Chelsea anymore, but the situation is the same, where you have an outside centre-back versus one of the most dynamic, tricky wingers that can go outside, inside, supreme on his left foot. The situation as well is Arsenal's front five, what they will create this. You'll see Odegaard will move into an inside right position, and Smith Rowe will move inside left, basically creating a overload in the transition on Chelsea's back five because of the high position of their left wing back who's out of shot. So as this progresses into the final third, we start to have a bit of a problem. Saka's cut inside and there's massive space in between the lines, and that is a concern. The tracking from midfield, you see N'Golo Kante has had to kind of move out and try and block Saka on the inside, what we kind of mentioned with Kovacic just a second ago. Kante's come out, he's tried to close that down, but it's opened up a little pocket of space for Odegaard in there. And at this point, you got a real concern. Loftus-Cheek's in a pretty bad defensive position. You would want him a lot deeper, so either he could, instantly put pressure on Odegaard from his blind side, or maybe block a pass out. That's a concern for me. And then, of course, when Odegaard's received, it's basically a 3v2 on Chelsea's two defenders on the far side of the pitch. This is a great goal. This is a great positional play goal, but it's something that Chelsea needs to be a lot more aggressive, with the outside, with the central midfielders. The one that's sort of advancing or pushing out. Let's say, we've got Saka in that wide area with the ball to his feet. We need, with Chelsea, they need to be far more aggressive to close that down with Kovacic. But then Jorginho needs to take a much better defensive position than we saw with Ruben Loftus-Cheek in this position right here. Obviously, the ball goes through. There's a 3v2 at the back post. And our goal scorer is number 2, is Emil Smith-Rowe, who has acres of space to pick the ball up edge of the box and slot it into the bottom corner. That is something that Chelsea really need to deal with in the transition. I think we mentioned previously how Chelsea can use their wing backs to create overloads as well. We've seen in the other game from last season, we saw Reece James provide really good quality when Chelsea attacked down the left-hand side, then transitioned through, through Mason Mount or Lukaku's hold-up play, worked it wide and got Reece James in behind. That's a situation that they could do, building with those 5 players. I think that's definitely a situation that they could really open up. Arsenal, we take a look at that game. That was a superb performance, and Arsenal couldn't deal with the threat of Reece James. Look how his high position, number 24. I think that's a way that Chelsea can get at Arsenal. Obviously, we looked at that kind of 1v1, creating those overloads and then attacking through and hitting the opposite side of the pitch. For Arsenal, I think Reece James was really important in this game. So if Azpilicueta starts as a wing-back, he's going to be really important going forward. They're my thoughts, guys. Get your score predictions in. Is Sterling injured? No, Sterling's not injured. I don't know why I've dropped him for this game, because he very much could come in for Aubameyang and would probably provide a good option, maybe wide right as well. A bit of more of a threat in behind that right side, and you could have Havertz spinning in. I think that's a good option as well in the match. Good question from Ewan coming in. Gabriel Jesus going through a dip in his goal-scoring form. I think that was expected. Nobody thought that he'd be a kind of 20, 30 goal a season striker. But I think what we did see with him, that this hold-up play, his pressing is perfect. Footy gangster, Jesus is a crazy workhorse. Lynn, another number 6 as a backup for Partey, is a must signing for Arsenal. Obviously, El Nene's come back from injury. Lokonga's being used higher. I kind of agree there. But get your score predictions in. Ewan's going for a 2-1 win for Arsenal. Six Tires going to go for a 3-1 win for Arsenal in the match. See if there's any other comments coming down. Let's go Gunners from Mujeb. Footy Gangsters going for Potable, which obviously is in development right now. I generally think the best system for Chelsea in this match would be that diamond. I generally think that's the one. Chalobah coming out for Gallagher into midfield, Jorginho holding, Mason Mount at the tip of the diamond, and then going with the back four. Obviously, you're restricting the width there for Arsenal, but you technically could play like a kind of split striker model with, you know, Havertz and Sterling providing the width. I just feel like they were really, really good, Chelsea, when they made that change against Manchester United, so I'd like to see them in a diamond. Would be really good. Elliot is going to go with a 2-1 win for Arsenal. Jesus and Martinelli with the goals. Well, guys, thanks for watching today. Thanks for getting involved in the stream. We'll be live every Monday at 12 for the review and the preview, of course, Friday. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What more do you want? But guys, thanks for everyone for stopping by today. And we'll be back very, very soon. We've got another video on the Statman Dave YouTube channel, United's 3313, for you guys to check out. Get in the comments below all your score predictions, all your thoughts. Subscribe if you're new. And we will see you later, you wonderful, wonderful, wonderful